Hey everybody, my topic is on sugar substitutes and your health. And the reason why I chose this topic is, as you guys know, my husband and I have been on Weight Watchers for a while, so occasionally I'll use sugar substitutes in desserts. And I wanted to know if there were any negative health concerns with using these substitutes, like do they cause cancer? So one question I'm going to answer is, are sugar substitutes better for you than sugar? So a little 101 about sugar substitutes. There's artificial sweeteners and then there's sugar substitutes that are more natural. And the artificial sweeteners are synthetic, they come from man-made sources. All sugar substitutes are very much more sweeter than normal sugar. And they must be approved by the FDA in order to be sold in stores. And they can be used in making drinks, they can be used in baking, and sometimes they're in dairy. So types of sugar substitutes. I'm talking about the little paper packets on cafe tables. There's saccharin or sucralose, and that's your sweet and low. And that is a chemical compound, so it's synthetic. There's aspartame, which is Nutri-Sweet or equal, and that is made from amino acids. There's ACE-K, which is a sweet one, and that's man-made, and it's actually 200 times sweeter than actual sugar. There's sucralose, which is Splenda. Splenda is the most common. People use it in baking a lot. You'll see it in like pudding and sometimes diet sodas. Then there's stevia, which are the brands Sweet Leaf and Truvia. That's my personal favorite. It comes from a South American plant. It's completely natural. And then there's sugar alcohols. These are kind of new. They come from plants as well. They're xylitol and sorbitol. And you can find them in diet ice creams like Halo Top or diet candy like chocolates perhaps. So there are health benefits for using sugar substitutes. As you probably would have guessed, they have barely any calories. So they're a great option if you're on a diet and you're counting those calories. And interestingly enough, sugar substitutes don't cause tooth decay or cavities. In comparison to sugar, they don't do these things. So they may be a dentist's friend. And if you're diabetic, many doctors recommend using sugar substitutes instead of sugar because they do not spike your blood glucose levels. So another benefit is, unlike what most people say, sugar substitutes actually don't increase your appetite. A study by Anton et al. Found that your feeling of fullness and your food intake was not affected whether if you had artificial sweeteners or normal sugar. And he did this by having 19 healthy and 12 obese men as participants, and some of them had sugar substitutes before meals and some had artificial sweetener substitutes. And they all had the same food intake and they both felt the same feeling of fullness. Another benefit is found by Manish and Monica. This is a study done on mice. So they had diabetic mice and normal mice, and they were given 3 types of water solutions. The water solutions were normal water, there's 10% saccharin, which is Splenda solution, and there's a 10% sucrose sugar solution. They found that the diabetic mice who drank the Splenda solution were less likely to overeat than the mice who had the sugar solution. And the diabetic mice who had the Splenda also, interestingly, had less depressive and anxiety symptoms. And of course, the sugar-eating mice tend to overeat more. There are some negative effects with using artificial sweeteners. So though sugar substitutes are not shown to increase food intake, they could cause weight gain simply because they may mess with your metabolism. A study by Polyak et al. Had mice that were given solutions of artificial sweeteners and normal tap water. And they found that the ones with the artificial sweeteners at the end of the study had increased body weight. Another study by Fowler et al. Performed the San Antonio heart study. He had 3,682 participants, and they either had artificial sweeteners or normal sugar in an 8-year study. And they were all matched for BMI, which is body mass index. And after each annual follow-up, the artificial sweetener group gained 4 pounds. compared to the sugar group, which only gained 2 pounds. So the artificial sweetener group did have a tendency to gain more weight, though it was only a 2-pound difference, and there could have been many other factors that could cause your weight to fluctuate like that. I would know. So yeah, take this info with a grain of salt. And another negative effect, this happens to be part of the tendency where you tend to prefer tastes that you eat more frequently. So if you eat sweet things a lot, you're going to have a sweet tooth. And this principle applies to sugar substitutes, because if you use sugar substitutes a lot, you're going to crave sweet things more too, because you're consuming sweet things, if that makes sense. Also, because sugar substitutes are 0 calories, you may feel like you can eat more of it, and that could lead to weight gain. So just because that sugar-free chocolate bar is sugar-free doesn't mean you should eat 10 of them. I speak from experience. Now, there's a huge myth about sugar substitutes, and that's artificial sweeteners cause cancer. Now, this myth comes from studies that were done in 1970s, and the studies found that artificial sweeteners cause bladder cancer in rats. But recent studies that have examined how substances operate in the human body have found that this negative effect is only replicated in rats. It does not pertain to humans. And also, according to the National Cancer Institute, there's no real evidence found, that has yet to been found, that shows artificial sweeteners causing cancer in humans. And that's a pretty reputable source. So, in conclusion, sugar substitutes have benefits and drawbacks. The benefits are obviously they have barely any calories, so they're a good option if you're on a diet, as long as you use them sparingly. And then if you're diabetic, you can substitute them in your diet because they don't spike your blood glucose levels, so they give you a good option if you have a sweet tooth. And then there's drawbacks. And drawbacks are you should be using these substitutes in moderation, because since we have a tendency to prefer things that we eat more often, if you eat a lot of sugar substitutes, you're going to crave sweet things more, and that can be a bad thing. And also, because sugar substitutes don't have many calories, you may feel like you're justified in eating more of the same item, but in actuality, eating too much of something can always cause you to gain weight. But sugar substitutes and artificial sweeteners have not yet been shown to cause any diseases. So we got to keep that in mind. And because this data is inconclusive, people should not rely on sugar substitutes too often, because who knows, there may be a study that surfaces that proves that they do cause something harmful. So you should have these in moderation, like all things. Sugar substitutes are great if you want to eat something sweet, you're on a diet, and you can just use those instead. But you shouldn't rely on them too often, of course. And in my opinion, if you're going to use a sugar substitute, I would opt for more natural ones, like stevia, which is a pure plant extract, or you could use honey, because we can all agree that things that come from natural sources are less problematic than synthetic stuff. Synthetic stuff is usually bad for you. And then, like I've said earlier, sugar substitutes, like all things, should be used in moderation, because too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. Thank you.